When we think of the Kennedy name, our minds often conjure images of classiness, grace, noblesse oblige, and the refined aura of old money. This connection is typically linked to President John F. Kennedy's educational background and his suave, handsome appearance. But where does this old money ethos within the famed Kennedy lineage truly stem from? Surprisingly, most often it originates not from Jack Kennedy, but rather from the Kennedy women. In today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we'll present a fascinating historical thesis on the nature of how the old money ethos is formed in one of America's most iconic dynasties, and explain how the women of the Kennedy family created the old money Kennedy ethos. We must, of course, start with the matriarch, Rose Elizabeth Fitzgerald Kennedy. Born on the 22nd of July 1890 in Boston, Massachusetts, Rose was the pride and joy of John F. Fitzgerald, also known as Honey Fitz, and Mary Josephine Hannon Fitzgerald, marking the beginning of a legacy that would shape American politics for generations. Now, John F. Fitzgerald, her father, wasn't just a household name in Boston. He was a titan of the national political arena, gracing the Massachusetts State Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives, and even the esteemed office of the Mayor of Boston. And growing up, Rose was no stranger to old money connections. Her educational journey saw her attend elite schools in the Netherlands and Dorchester, Massachusetts. But it wasn't just her schooling that set her apart. It was her early foray into the world of politics. At the tender age of 16, she became her father's shadow, accompanying him to public functions, a role typically reserved for her more reserved mother. You see, the Fitzgeralds were the very embodiment of the lace-curtain Irish-American community in Boston. Their wealth and status didn't just give them a seat at the table, it gave them the power to shape the table itself. They were at the forefront of the Irish Democratic takeover in Boston, a movement that sent shockwaves through the Yankee Republicans, who saw Fitzgeraldism, as it was known, as a threat to their traditional hold over the city. And thus it was during her teenage years that Rose's path crossed with Joseph Patrick "Joe" Kennedy. However, their families, both vacationing in Maine, were unaware that this meeting would intertwine their destinies forever. Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. was even then an embodiment of ambition, and he fashioned himself as a businessman with an insatiable thirst for power, a quest that gave him a vision to elevate his family to the echelons of old money. Despite the frowns and disapproving glances from her father, Rose, with a rebellious heart, married Joseph Kennedy in October 1914 in what can only be described as a modest ceremony, far removed from the grandeur one would expect. But this union was more than just a matrimonial alliance. It was the fusion of two future powerhouses, creating a political dynasty that would dominate American politics. Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., with his sharp business acumen and relentless pursuit of wealth, dabbled in various ventures, including investment-grade real estate, further cementing the Kennedy family's influence and wealth. Rose Kennedy, a product of the influential Fitzgerald family, and her marriage to the astute Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. laid the foundations of a legacy that transcends time. Indeed, this strategic alliance would later be famously emulated by Joseph's son, John F. Kennedy, whose story we'll cover next. Now, Jacqueline Lee Bouvier, born on the 28th of July 1929 in the affluent town of Southampton, New York, was destined to leave an unforgettable imprint on American history. The daughter of John Bouvier, a Wall Street maven, and Janet Bouvier, with her illustrious Irish-English lineage, Jackie, along with her sister Caroline Lee, was ushered into the upper echelons of New York City and Long Island society, a world brimming with opulence and privilege. The Bouvier sisters' early years were spent in the grandeur of a 12-room duplex at 740 Park Avenue in Manhattan, and summers were like pages from a fairy tale spent at Lasata, the family estate in East Hampton. Their father, John Verneau Bouvier III, known as Black Jack, with his Clark Gable-esque charm and a reputation as a ladies' man, was their hero. Despite his flirtatious ways and penchant for the bottle, he was a doting father, instilling in his daughters the drive to excel, to be nothing short of the best. And even better, Jackie's childhood was a tapestry woven with cultural and artistic threads. An equestrian prodigy, without a doubt an old money pastime and skill, she claimed national championships by age 11. And her intellectual pursuits were just as formidable. She devoured every children's book on her shelves before even stepping into a school. Her idols were as eclectic as her interests. Mowgli, Robin Hood, little Lord Fauntleroy's grandfather, Scarlett O'Hara, and the poet Lord Byron. Quite naturally, education for Jackie was a journey through prestigious institutions, Miss Chapin's school in New York and Miss Porter's school in Connecticut. She wasn't just a student, she was a beacon of academic and equestrian excellence, often outshining her sister Lee, whose old money grace we'll talk about a bit later. Jackie's quest for knowledge took her to Vassar College, followed by a year in France, immersing herself in its rich culture and history, and culminating with a degree in French literature from George Washington University. But Jackie's sojourn in Paris was more than just an academic endeavor. It was a deep dive into the French way of life, living with the de Renty family and absorbing every nuance of their culture. And her passion for history and culture became a defining element of her public persona. As the First Lady, she was a custodian of the arts, a champion of historic preservation, and a cultural ambassador par excellence. Her fluency in French, another secret old money tell, and her affinity for global cultures made her a beloved figure on the world stage. But her marriage to John F. Kennedy on the 12th of September, 1953, at St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church in Newport, Rhode Island, was even more a watershed moment. Jackie, with her old money, elegance and sophistication, didn't just capture the nation's heart, she transformed the Kennedy family's public image. Her style and fashion sensibilities set trends and inspired generations, and Jackie's influence extended far beyond style. Her French connections, her mastery of the language and her love for French culture were instrumental in enhancing US-French relations during Kennedy's presidency. Her charm and diplomatic acumen fostered positive relationships with world leaders, including Charles de Gaulle and Nikita Khrushchev, showcasing her pivotal role in the international political arena. Therefore, without Jackie Kennedy, the family itself would not have nearly as much of an old money ethos, from the Camelot imagery we all know and love, to the international energy brimming from the Kennedy administration, on down to the fashion sense and elegant poise. However, sartorial skill and iconic fashion within the Kennedy lineage only begins with Jackie Kennedy. It doesn't end there. Our next Kennedy icon takes the grace and opulence even further. On the 3rd of March, 1933, in the heart of Manhattan, New York City, Caroline Lee Bouvier, who would later be known as Lee Radziwill, was born. As the younger sister of Jacqueline Kennedy, Lee was cradled in the lap of luxury from the onset. Her childhood, shared with her sister, unfolded in lavish Manhattan apartments and grand estates along the East Coast, a setting that would deeply influence her fashion sensibilities and lifestyle. And even before her sister ascended to the role of First Lady in 1961, Lee's fashion sense was a subject of admiration in the press. Her style was a harmonious blend of clean lines, oversized sunglasses, and effortlessly flowing hair, a stark contrast to the rigid elegance of the 1950s. Indeed, Vogue magazine lauded her for steering American fashion towards a more relaxed yet confident aesthetic. And her timeless fashion choices continue to resonate with designers even today. Thus, Lee's foray into high society and her innate glamour catapulted her to the status of an international socialite and fashion icon. Her sophisticated taste earned her a spot among the world's best-dressed women, and she was a part of Truman Capote's Swan, a circle of elegant high society women basking in the intellectual glow that Capote's attention brought, further solidifying her high society status. But Lee's fashion influence wasn't confined to her wardrobe. It extended to her living spaces. She had an uncanny ability to craft iconic living spaces, often infused with Eastern influences, and her signature sophisticated pink. Her style garnered admiration from fashion giants like Giorgio Armani, Marc Jacobs, Michael Kors, and Carolina Herrera. Despite being in the shadow of her globally renowned sister, Lee's natural glamour shone brightly, making her a fashion icon in her own right. Her style was defined by a love for luxurious jewelry, opulent coats, and minimalist attire, cementing her as a central figure in high society for over half a century. And the marriage of Lee Bouvier to Polish aristocrat Prince Stanislaw Albrecht Radziwill in March 1959 was more than a marriage. It was a fusion of wealth and power. The Radziwills, one of Poland's most illustrious families, owned vast estates across Europe, and this union with European nobility further elevated the Kennedy family's standing in high society. Subsequently, in the 1960s, Lee Radziwill became a significant figure in the fashion world, embodying and enhancing the Kennedy family's old money aesthetic. As the sister-in-law of US President John F. Kennedy, Lee was constantly in the public eye, her personal style a subject of keen observation, and she shared her sister Jacqueline's affinity for elegant and sophisticated clothing, often influenced by French fashion. During this era, the fashion world was in flux, with societal norms being redefined and trends evolving rapidly. While Jacqueline Kennedy pioneered new ground for American fashion, Lee's style evolved alongside these changes. She became synonymous with chic and timeless ensembles, a symbol of high society. Thus, both sisters, Jacqueline and Lee, were and are celebrated as old money style icons. Their fashion choices, from Jacqueline's boxy skirt suits and coordinating accessories to Lee's chic outfits, were emulated by women across the United States and beyond. Their impact on fashion not only defined the old money aesthetic, but also left an enduring legacy on the Kennedy family's image. Next, born in July 1921, Eunice Kennedy Shriver emerged as a luminary in the Kennedy family's philanthropic saga. Her life's mission to uplift those sidelined by society, especially individuals with intellectual disabilities, was deeply rooted in her bond with her elder sister, Rosemary, who herself faced intellectual challenges. In 1957, Shriver assumed the helm of the Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. Foundation, a tribute to her late brother, a casualty of World War II. Under her stewardship, the foundation pivoted from supporting Catholic charities to delving into research on intellectual disabilities, seeking humane treatment methods. Its objectives centered on preventing intellectual disabilities by uncovering their causes and transforming societal approaches to people with these disabilities. Next, Shriver's vision and relentless pursuit of justice blossomed into the Special Olympics movement. In 1968, alongside the Chicago Park District, the Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. Foundation orchestrated the inaugural International Special Olympics Summer Games in Chicago's Soldier Field. This groundbreaking event saw 1,000 athletes with intellectual disabilities from 26 states and Canada compete in athletics. By December 1968, Special Olympics Incorporated was established as a non-profit in the District of Columbia. But Shriver's impact transcended the Special Olympics. She influenced her brother, President John F. Kennedy, to establish a committee on developmental disabilities, leading to the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development at the National Institutes of Health. Her influence also extended to academia, founding centers for medical ethics at Harvard University and Georgetown University. And Shriver's relentless efforts garnered her the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1984, bestowed by President Ronald Reagan, who lauded her for her contributions to individuals with intellectual disabilities. The genesis of the Special Olympics traces back to the inaugural Camp Shriver in 1962, hosted in Eunice's backyard. This camp was a testament to her commitment to challenging the unjust treatment of people with intellectual disabilities. Next, Eunice's marriage to Sergeant Shriver, a diplomat, politician, and activist, melded political clout with old money humanitarian ethos. Sergeant, the architect behind the Peace Corps and the War on Poverty, and Eunice, together for 56 years, formed a powerful duo dedicated to social change and empowerment. Eunice's work was not just a professional endeavor, but a personal crusade, inspired by her sister Rosemary. Her efforts in politics, government, and activism significantly improved lives globally. And Caroline Kennedy, born on the 27th of November 1957 and daughter of President John F. Kennedy and Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, began her education in the White House, later attending prestigious schools and earning degrees from Harvard and Columbia Law School. Her career spans writing, editing, law, and politics, and Caroline served as a research assistant at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and later in education, significantly aiding New York City schools. Her diplomatic tenure as U.S. ambassador to Japan from 2010 to 2017 showcased her ability to navigate complex political landscapes, a skill nurtured by her education and early exposure to politics. Additionally, Caroline's charitable endeavors include roles with the Fund for Public Schools and the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation, further cementing her family's legacy of public service and social responsibility. Thus, both Eunice and Caroline's extensive philanthropic and public service efforts helped to solidify the old money ethos of noblesse oblige in the Kennedy lineage, well after the White House had other tenets. And last, Maria Shriver charted a path in journalism that seamlessly wove her family's political legacy with her own media persona. Her zeal for broadcast journalism ignited during her father's 1972 US vice presidential campaign, an experience she later hailed as transformative. Shriver's journalistic journey began at CBS station KYW-TV, led her to anchor the CBS Morning News and eventually to NBC News. Her career was distinguished by a commitment to precise reporting and a firm belief in the narrative's power, earning recognition from Forbes and Time magazine as one of the most influential women in media. In 1986, Shriver married Arnold Schwarzenegger, a union melding political clout with Hollywood glamour. Despite their contrasting political leanings, Shriver, a Democrat, and Schwarzenegger, a Republican, their marriage was pivotal to Schwarzenegger's political ascent, particularly his gubernatorial victory. However, their relationship faced trials, leading to their separation in 2011. But Shriver's advocacy and authorship continued the Kennedy tradition of societal impact. Her father's Alzheimer's diagnosis in 2003 spurred her advocacy for dementia and Alzheimer's research. She founded the Women's Alzheimer's movement, focusing on why Alzheimer's disproportionately affects women and communities of color. In 2017, her efforts earned her the Alzheimer's Association Lifetime Achievement Award. Her literary contributions, including 10 Things I Wish I'd Known Before I Went Out into the Real World and The Shriver Report, showcase her commitment to addressing societal issues and sparking conversations. Jean Kennedy Smith, born in February 1928, also embodied the Kennedy family's cultural and societal ethos. In 1974, she founded Very Special Arts, now the VSA, an educational arm of the Kennedy Center, providing creative arts opportunities to persons with disabilities. This endeavor, earning her the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011, reflected her belief in arts accessibility for all. Her board memberships at the John F. Kennedy Center and the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace further illustrated the Kennedys' societal commitment. In 1956, Jean married Stephen E. Smith, intertwining the Kennedy lineage with another distinguished American family, and their union yielded 4 children: Stephen Jr., William, Amanda, and Kim. And Jean's cultural impact extended to diplomacy. As U.S. ambassador to Ireland, she played a pivotal role in Northern Ireland's peace process, thus tying into the broader old money international mentality of giving back. Additionally, Ethel Kennedy, widow of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, has been a beacon in philanthropy and social activism, especially post her husband's tenure. Ethel, embodying the old money Kennedy ethos of political and social engagement, founded the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights after his assassination in 1968. This organization collaborates with local activists to promote human rights, living out Robert Kennedy's vision of a just and peaceful world. Even in her 90s, Ethel remains a dynamic figure in various social causes, epitomizing a life dedicated to humanitarianism, echoing the Kennedy legacy of service and social justice. Therefore, we can see that it is really the Kennedy women who are as pivotal to the old money connection with the name Kennedy as the men themselves. But with that said, we'd love to see you in the comments. Which of the Kennedy women do you believe has had the greatest impact on bringing the old money vibe to the lineage? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And thanks again for joining us for another episode of Old Money Luxury. Cheers. Until next time.